The morning my husband told me he loved me for the last time, I was standing in the back kitchen of my bakery, elbow deep in sourdough, when my phone buzzed on the flour-dusted counter. A text from him at 7:14 a.m. Morning, beautiful. Stuck in surgery all day. Save me one of those cinnamon rolls. Love you more than oxygen. I smiled. I actually smiled. And then I heard his laugh. Not through the phone, through the wall. My bakery, Lena's on Laurel, sits on the corner of Laurel Street and 5th Avenue in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. The front is a cafe with big glass windows. The back is the kitchen where I spend every morning before sunrise, baking bread the way my grandmother taught me. And between the kitchen and the cafe, there's a narrow hallway with a one-way mirror I installed 2 years ago, so I could watch the front without customers seeing me covered in flour. I wiped my hands on my apron and stepped into that hallway. And there he was. My husband, Dr. Nathan Calloway, board-certified orthopedic surgeon. The man who told me 60 seconds ago he was stuck in surgery. Sitting at the corner booth with a woman I'd never seen before. Blonde, maybe 30, expensive coat. She was feeding him a bite of my cinnamon roll with her fingers, and he was looking at her the way he used to look at me on Sunday mornings, when the light came through our bedroom window just right. He leaned in and kissed her. Slow. Deep. The kind of kiss that isn't new. The kind that says, I've memorized you. My phone was still in my hand, his text still glowing on the screen. Stuck in surgery all day. I felt my chest crack open. Not figuratively. I felt something inside me physically break, like a rib snapping under pressure. I reached for the door handle. I was going to walk out there and flip that table and scream until every customer in my bakery knew what kind of man Dr. Nathan Calloway really was. But I didn't. Because something stopped me. A memory. My grandmother's voice, clear as Sunday church bells. Lena, a smart woman doesn't swing when she's angry. She swings when she's ready. So I took my hand off the door. I stepped back into the shadows of that hallway. And I watched. He stayed for 22 minutes. I timed it. At 7:36, they stood. He left a 20 on the table. She straightened his collar. He kissed her forehead and walked out first. She waited 2 minutes, then followed. 2 exits, 2 timings. This wasn't careless. This was practiced. I went back to the kitchen, sat on an overturned crate, and stared at the wall for 11 minutes. Then I picked up my phone and called the one person I trusted more than anyone. My best friend since kindergarten, Diane Holloway, who happened to be a forensic accountant for the Charleston County District Attorney's Office. She answered on the second ring. It's 7 a.m., Lena. Someone better be dead. Not yet, I said, but I need your help. That afternoon, while Nathan was at the hospital doing whatever surgeons do when they're not lying to their wives, I went home. We lived in a 4-bedroom colonial on Queen Street, the kind of house that looks like it belongs on a magazine cover. Nathan's study was on the 2nd floor. Locked. Always locked. He said it was because of patient files, HIPAA regulations, boring medical stuff. I believed him. I believed everything. But my grandmother also taught me something else. She taught me that every locked door has a weakness, and most of the time, the weakness is the person who locked it. I tried his birthday. Wrong. Our anniversary. Wrong. Then I tried the name of his childhood dog, the one he talked about every Thanksgiving after 3 glasses of bourbon, Baxter. The door opened to his email. What I found in the next 40 minutes changed everything I thought I knew about my life. The first thing was a folder on his desktop labeled Asset Strategy. Inside were documents from a lawyer I'd never heard of, Gregory Phelps, detailing a plan to transfer ownership of Lena's on Laurel to a holding company called Magnolia Ventures LLC. The transfer date was set for March 15th, 6 weeks away. The estimated value of my bakery, according to an appraisal I never authorized, was $1.4 million. The appraisal had been conducted by a company called Low Country Valuations, and the contact person was someone named Jared Odom. I kept digging. An email thread between Nathan and Gregory Phelps, dated 3 months earlier. She's been having health episodes. Dizzy spells, nausea, trouble concentrating. I'm documenting everything as her physician husband. When the time comes, we'll argue diminished capacity. She'll sign the transfer thinking it's a routine business filing. By the time she realizes what happened, the LLC will have already sold to the developer. I read it twice, then 3 times. Diminished capacity, health episodes. I had been having health episodes since November. 4 months of waking up with pounding headaches, blurred vision, nausea so bad I'd have to sit down in the middle of kneading bread. I'd been to my doctor twice. Blood work came back normal. Probably stress, she said. Running a business is exhausting, but it wasn't stress. And sitting in Nathan's study, staring at that email, a cold understanding settled into my bones. I opened his browser history. The searches went back to September. Diphenhydramine overdose symptoms. Can Benadryl cause confusion and memory loss? How much diphenhydramine is undetectable in food? Long-term effects of antihistamine poisoning. My husband had been drugging me. Every night for 4 months, while I slept beside him, trusting him with my life, he'd been slipping antihistamines into something I consumed, slowly making me foggy, forgetful, and weak. Weak enough to sign away my grandmother's bakery without understanding what I was signing. I closed the laptop. My hands weren't shaking. I thought they would be, but they weren't. The shock had burned through me so fast it left something cold and still in its place. Something focused. I took photos of every document, every email, every search. I forwarded copies to a new email address Nathan didn't know about, and then I called Diane. "I need you to come over," I said, "now." Diane arrived in 30 minutes. I showed her everything. She sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through the photos on my phone, her face getting harder with every screen. "Lena," she said finally, "this isn't just fraud. This is poisoning. This is a crime." "I know. You need to go to the police." "Not yet. I need more. I need to know who the woman is. I need to know who Jared Odom is. And I need to prove Nathan's actually putting something in my food, not just that he searched for it." Diane looked at me for a long moment. "You're going to build a case. My grandmother didn't raise me to cry. She raised me to cook, and she raised me to fight." The next morning, I woke up before Nathan. I went to the kitchen and started the coffee maker like any other day. When Nathan came downstairs at 6:15, I watched him through the reflection in the microwave door. He poured 2 cups of coffee. He opened the cabinet where we kept vitamins and supplements. He pulled out a bottle of melatonin gummies, the ones he'd bought for my sleep issues back in October. But he didn't take one. He twisted the cap off a second bottle behind it, one I'd never noticed, shook out 2 small white tablets, crushed them between 2 spoons, and stirred the powder into my cup. It took him 8 seconds. Then he brought me my coffee with that warm, perfect smile. "Here you go, sweetheart." I put extra cream in it. I took the cup. I held it to my lips. I didn't drink. "Thank you," I said. He kissed my forehead and left for work. The second his car pulled out of the driveway, I poured the coffee into a mason jar, sealed it, and labeled it with the date and time. Then I found the bottle he'd been hiding behind the melatonin. Diphenhydramine tablets, 50 milligrams. The bottle was nearly empty. I photographed it, put it back exactly where it was, and drove to the Medical University of South Carolina Toxicology Lab with my jar of coffee. The results came back 48 hours later. My coffee contained 75 milligrams of crushed diphenhydramine, 3 times the recommended dose, enough to cause drowsiness, confusion, impaired memory, and chronic nausea if taken daily over months. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came on a Tuesday afternoon 2 weeks into my investigation, when Diane called me with a voice I'd never heard her use before. Flat, controlled, the way people talk when they're trying not to scream. "Lena, I ran the name Jared Odom through the county records." "And?" "He doesn't work for Low Country Valuations. There is no Low Country Valuations. It's a shell company registered 6 months ago to a P.O. box in Mount Pleasant. So who is Jared Odom?" A pause. "Lena, Jared Odom is your brother-in-law. It's a name your sister's husband Kevin uses for his real estate side deals. And the holding company, Magnolia Ventures, is registered to 2 people. Nathan Calloway and Kevin Odom, your sister, Rachel's husband." I sat down. "My sister. I don't think Rachel knows. The company filings only list Nathan and Kevin." "But Lena, there's something else." "What?" I pulled Kevin's phone records through a warrant we already had open for an unrelated fraud case. "He's been calling the blonde woman who was in your bakery. Her name is Vanessa Pratt. She's a paralegal at Gregory Phelps's law firm. She's also been texting Nathan for 14 months. 14 months. My husband had been sleeping with this woman for over a year. And my own brother-in-law, the man my sister married, the man who sat at my Thanksgiving table and complimented my pecan pie, had been helping Nathan steal my bakery. I called Rachel. I didn't tell her everything. I just asked if Kevin had mentioned any new business ventures lately. She laughed. You know Kevin, always got some deal cooking. Why? Just curious. I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time. My sister wasn't involved. She was being played too, just from a different angle. Kevin was using her trust the same way Nathan was using mine. 2 sisters, 2 husbands, 1 scheme. My grandmother, Abuela Maria, opened Lena's on Laurel in 1987 with $700 and a sourdough starter she'd carried from Mexico City in a mason jar. She named it after me because I was born the same week the ovens were installed. She used to say, "This bakery is your birthright, mija. Protect it the way I protect you." She died 3 years ago. Left me the bakery and a letter I found pressed between the pages of her recipe journal. Querida Lena, if someone ever tries to take what is yours, go to Margaret Chen at First National Trust on Broad Street. She has something for you. Te quiero siempre, abuela. I'd never gone to Margaret Chen. I never thought I'd need to. But 2 weeks after finding Nathan's emails, I walked into First National Trust and asked for her. Margaret was in her 60s, silver-haired, steady-eyed. She recognized my name immediately. "Maria told me you'd come eventually," she said. "She just hoped you wouldn't have to." She opened a file. My grandmother had set up a $620,000 irrevocable trust with a single activation condition, documented evidence that someone was attempting to take Lena's on Laurel from me through fraud, coercion, or deception. She was a remarkable woman, Margaret said. She told me, "My granddaughter will fight. She just needs ammunition." I walked out of that bank with access to more money than I'd ever had in my life, and a plan forming in my mind that my grandmother would have been proud of. Over the next 4 months, I built my case piece by piece. I hired a private investigator, Clara Montoya, who documented Nathan and Vanessa's affair with photographs, hotel receipts, and GPS data. I installed a hidden camera in Nathan's study that captured him on 3 separate occasions, reviewing the fraudulent transfer documents with Kevin over video calls. I recorded Nathan drugging my coffee 6 more times, each instance documented with timestamps and subsequent lab tests. I worked with Diane, who connected me to Assistant District Attorney Robert Winters, a man who specialized in financial crimes and domestic abuse cases. I stopped drinking anything Nathan prepared. I switched to tea I made myself, kept in a sealed thermos. Within 2 weeks, my headache stopped. My vision cleared. My energy came back. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again, and that clarity turned my grief into something sharper. Nathan noticed the change. "You seem better," he said one evening, watching me with an expression I now recognized as calculation. "Whatever your doctor adjusted, it's working." "Must be the new vitamins," I lied. He smiled. I smiled back. 2 predators circling each other in a house that used to feel like home. In July, I learned something that nearly broke my resolve. Clara's investigation uncovered that Vanessa Pratt wasn't just Nathan's mistress. She was pregnant, 11 weeks. And Nathan had told her he was leaving me for her as soon as the property situation was resolved. He'd promised her a house in Mount Pleasant. He'd promised her a future. He'd promised her everything he'd promised me. But here's what Vanessa didn't know. Nathan had a vasectomy in 2019, a year before we got married. I found the records in his medical files during my first search of his study. He told me he wanted to wait a few years for children. He told Vanessa the same thing he told me, that he was ready, that their baby was a miracle, that everything was falling into place. The baby wasn't his. It couldn't be, which meant either Vanessa knew and was playing her own game, or she genuinely believed it was Nathan's, and someone else's child was growing inside her while she helped destroy my marriage. I chose not to think about that. It wasn't my problem. Not yet. On October 12th, I set the trap. Every year, Lena's on Laurel hosted a charity gala for the Charleston Children's Foundation. 200 guests, local press, city council members, hospital executives. Nathan always came. It was good for his image, the generous surgeon married to the beloved baker. This year, I made sure certain people received personal invitations. Gregory Phelps, Kevin Odom, Vanessa Pratt, listed as a representative of Phelps's law firm. My sister Rachel, Nathan's mother, Eleanor Calloway, who adored me and had no idea what her son had become. And tucked discreetly into the crowd, Diane, ADA Robert Winters, and 2 plainclothes officers from the Charleston PD. The gala started at 7. By 7:30, the dining room was full, the champagne was flowing, and Nathan was working the room with the easy confidence of a man who believed he was untouchable. I watched him shake hands with the hospital chief of staff. I watched him introduce Vanessa as a colleague from a legal consultation. I watched Kevin slip in beside him, the two of them exchanging a glance that confirmed everything. At 8:15, I stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room. The microphone was already set up for the charity auction, but there would be no auction tonight. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "Every year, this gala raises money for children who've lost their safety nets. Tonight, I want to talk about what happens when the people who are supposed to protect you become the ones who hurt you." I saw Nathan's smile falter. Just a flicker. 7 months ago, I discovered that my husband has been drugging me. The room went absolutely silent. Not a glass clinked. Not a chair creaked. 200 people holding their breath. Every morning for 4 months, he crushed diphenhydramine tablets into my coffee. Not enough to kill me. Just enough to make me confused, forgetful, and too weak to notice that he was working with his lawyer, Gregory Phelps, and my brother-in-law, Kevin Odom, to steal this bakery through a fraudulent property transfer. I tapped the screen behind me. The projector displayed the first email between Nathan and Gregory Phelps. I read the key line aloud. "She's been having health episodes. Will argue diminished capacity." Then the toxicology reports. 7 of them. 7 mornings of documented poisoning. Then the photographs. Nathan and Vanessa at the Charleston Place Hotel. Nathan and Kevin reviewing forged documents on video. The fake appraisal. The shell company. The offshore wire instructions. I showed everything. Every email. Every photo. Every lab result. And with each slide, I watched Nathan's face drain of color until he looked like a man watching his own funeral. "I built this bakery with my grandmother's recipes in my own hands," I said. "Maria Esperanza Delgado came to this country with $700 and a jar of sourdough starter. She spent 40 years turning that starter into a Charleston institution, and my husband tried to steal it while I slept." I turned to Nathan. "You should know that the Multnomah Trust Abuelas set up with Margaret Chen at First National has been activated. Every penny is now funding my legal defense and this investigation. You should also know that Ada Robert Winters is standing by the bar with 2 officers from the Charleston Police Department. And they have warrants." The room erupted. Nathan shot to his feet. "Lena, this is insane. You're having a breakdown. You need help." Robert Winters stepped forward, badge visible. "Dr. Calloway, I'd suggest you stop talking." He nodded to the officers. "Nathan James Calloway, you're under arrest for aggravated assault through poisoning, conspiracy to commit fraud, and forgery. Gregory Phelps, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory to assault." Phelps, who had been edging toward the exit, froze as an officer blocked the door. Kevin tried to run. He made it 4 steps before the second officer caught his arm. "Kevin Odom, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and participation in a criminal enterprise." My sister Rachel stood in the middle of the crowd, her face white, her hands pressed over her mouth. She looked at Kevin being handcuffed. Then she looked at me. "Lena," she whispered. "I'm sorry," I said. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I needed you to see it." She didn't cry. Not then. She just stood there, watching her husband being led out beside mine, and I saw something shift behind her eyes. The same cold clarity I'd felt 7 months ago in Nathan's study. She'd be okay. We both would. Vanessa tried to leave quietly through the kitchen, but Diane intercepted her. "Miss Pratt, you should know that the baby you're carrying isn't Nathan's. He had a vasectomy in 2019. I have the medical records if you'd like to see them." Vanessa's face crumbled. Whatever game she thought she was playing, whatever future Nathan had promised her, it all collapsed in a single sentence. She sat down on a kitchen stool and didn't move for 20 minutes. Nathan's mother, Eleanor, found me after the officers had cleared the room. She was crying, her pearl necklace twisted between her fingers. "Lena, sweetheart, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I raised him better than this." "I know you did, Eleanor. This isn't your fault." She held my hands and looked me straight in the eyes. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." That broke me. That was the thing that finally cracked the wall I'd been holding up for 7 months. I cried in Eleanor's arms while the caterers quietly cleared the tables and the police lights flashed red and blue through the windows of my bakery. The trials concluded in February. Nathan received 18 years for aggravated assault, conspiracy to commit fraud, and forgery. The judge cited the calculated, sustained, and deeply cruel nature of the poisoning and called it one of the most disturbing cases of domestic abuse she had overseen. Gregory Phelps received 6 years for conspiracy and was permanently disbarred. Kevin received 5 years for his role in the fraud scheme. Rachel filed for divorce the same week. She moved into a small apartment on King Street, and we started having coffee together on Sunday mornings, sitting in the same booth where Nathan used to meet Vanessa. We didn't talk about the men. We talked about Abuela, about sourdough, about starting over. In March, I used the remaining trust fund money to renovate the bakery. New ovens, expanded seating, a pastry classroom in the back, where I now teach free baking workshops for women leaving abusive relationships. I partnered with the Charleston Women's Shelter to create the Maria Delgado Culinary Fellowship, offering $15,000 grants to survivors who want to build careers in food. We awarded 4 fellowships in the first cycle. One of the recipients, a woman named Keisha, who had escaped a 10-year nightmare with nothing but her 2 daughters and a recipe for sweet potato pie, told me something I'll never forget. "Miss Lena, your grandmother saved my life, and she never even met me." I keep Abuela's recipe journal on a shelf above the register, open to the first page where she wrote in her careful, slanted handwriting, "The best bread takes time, so does justice. Be patient, Mia. Be patient." I think about Nathan sometimes, sitting in his cell, stripped of his license, his reputation, his freedom. I think about how he used to kiss my forehead and call me sweetheart while plotting my destruction. And I think about the morning I watched him poison my coffee and chose not to scream, not to cry, not to confront him in a blaze of fury that would have given him exactly what he needed, a reason to call me crazy. I chose silence. I chose patience. I chose strategy. And 7 months later, I stood on a stage in my grandmother's bakery and watched justice walk through the front door. To you listening to this, wherever you are, if something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Don't let anyone tell you you're paranoid. Don't let anyone tell you you're too sensitive. And if the person poisoning your life is the same person who kisses you goodnight, know this: you are stronger than their lies. You are smarter than their plans. And the truth, once you find it, is the sharpest knife in the kitchen. My grandmother said that. She was right about everything. Where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments, your city, your country. I'd love to connect with you. And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that survival isn't just possible, it's powerful. Thank you for staying with me until the end. And a quick note, while this story contains fictional elements for educational purposes, the lessons about trust, betrayal, and resilience are deeply real. Stay safe, stay sharp, and never let anyone steal your bread.